Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of the Talk That Talk Show with me, Barry Holmes. And it's been a little bit since our last episode, but I'm happy here to share episode 270 with all of you all, man. Whether you're tuned in on Instagram, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, everybody that tunes into this podcast, I appreciate you guys to the max. My life has been, dare I say, a whirlwind in the last couple months. But I've been finding a way to navigate through it each and every day and come out on top with positivity. And I think that, that's huge, especially when you feel like, a lot's getting thrown at you at once. And I definitely wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about, what's been going on in my life and what's, been transpiring beyond just Talk That Talk Show. But recently, I'm wearing this shirt right here, Fino Tommy. Big shout out to my boy Fino Tommy over at Happy Farmer. But there's a reason why I'm wearing this shirt. Pretty much, everybody's been asking me if you've been following me on Facebook or Instagram. I have literally got my own pre-roll. It's called the Barrys, and it's eloquently blue and orange like my favorite team. I think you know what that goes to. But, I really wanted to talk about how I was able to get this opportunity, because one of the things that people have been asking me, since the releases, how the heck did you get your own pre-roll? How did you make that happen? Well, first things first, everything couldn't have started without Barry's Corner. I got to give a big time shout out to Isaiah, Israel, who even had the idea for naming it Barry's Corner. But, I would say about a year and a half ago, we had the idea of doing a weekly segment through the Instagram, highlighting 5 of our favorite products, right? And really, through doing that platform and doing these weekly reviews, I was able to establish myself within the cannabis community in New Jersey. And really, this would get virally shared through different dispensaries, different accounts, but people were literally using this information I gave them as far as what my favorite 5 were from the store. They were going out and purchasing these items, and what we saw is that the sales from different companies that I highlighted increased. And from that, I was able to get this platform and utilize it to the max, man. And through that platform, people would invite me to different events, and I would go to these events and see the different products that they had. But really, I just, immersed myself into the culture of cannabis within New Jersey. And in doing so, I wound up finding one of my favorite brands, right? So at the time, Happy Farmer had just came out. Fino Tommy, big shout out to him. But he's one of the head cultivators over at Happy Farmer. And, I met this guy. They came into the store over at Cloud9 when I was there. And, they just had a different energy about them. And I feel like when you're coming into business, especially in cannabis, you realize who is business people and then who are actual cannabis culture people. And Tommy was one of those guys that, just seemed and was very authentic. And you could tell he was for the culture. And, in seeing so, it all started off with the high quality product, right? All of his stuff would sell out in our stores. And as a bud tender, I would spend my own money to try and buy his products and try them myself. And one of the products I really enjoyed was this tropical gelato. The Trop G, whether he had it in the 1.75 grams or whether he had it in the 1 grams or the 8s, I would always buy that strain. And come to find out, maybe fast forward about a year and a half to about a couple months ago, and Happy Farmer, my boy Fino Tommy, was like, Barry, I know you love that tropical gelato. I actually have the best run of it that I've ever done. It's tested the highest. And how would you think about, taking it? And at first I'm like, what is this guy talking about? I didn't know. I didn't fathom what he was talking about. So I was like, well, what do you mean take it? I'd love to smoke it. What do you mean take it? But nah, he said straight up, he was like, no, I want you to have your own pre-roll. He's like, you get the tubes, you come up with your design, and we'll run with it. You can have the tropical gelato. And at first, I was just kind of not, I took it seriously, but I didn't really take it seriously, right? I was like, damn, I could have my own pre-roll, but obviously I'm juggling and doing a million different things, and it really, I have to, take my hats off to Tommy, because he really pushed for me to do this. He would call me up. He was like, hey, did you get those tubes yet? Hey, have you got the design yet? Hey, where are we looking at? And I feel like, in business, or whether you're in something like that, it's always great to have some sort of partner or somebody that's going to push you and hold you accountable. I got to thank Tommy so much, obviously, for the opportunity. But again, holding me accountable, saying, where are you along in this process? Have you done this? How can I help you? Just so much as giving me the dimensions so that I could make the stickers to go on these pre-rolls. It meant something to have someone like Tommy to push me. And when I really took it seriously, and I did the numbers, one of the things that kind of it stopped me for a little bit was when I looked at the number and how much it would cost for me up front. And at first, I kind of joggled whether I was going to do it or not, whether it'd be worth it. But then, I thought about all the bullshit I spend money on that, doesn't help me, and all the money that I waste on different things. And I was like, if I could, do this, and if I could, blow money on other stuff, why would I not be able to invest in myself, right? So when it came down to it, I decided to invest that money into myself, and yeah, I made it happen. Big shout out to my boy Dejan. Dejan has been, somebody who really, one thing that Isaiah said, and I keep reiterating it because it's really stuck out to me, but he always said to, surround yourself around people that want to see you win. And I have to give, again, a big time shout out to my boy Dejan, because, without him, helping me with banners, helping me with merch, even coming up with the design for the Barrys, I originally had like this old English looking, logo or whatever that I thought was pretty cool. And, it took a friend like Dejan to be like, yo, that shit looks ass. It looks lame. And then I had to look at myself, I'm like, yeah, you're right. How can we jazz this up? And, when it came down to it, we got the actual hexagonal colors to the New York Knicks. And I really wanted to personalize this. And it was funny because when it came down to coming up with a name for the Barrys and how I was actually going to get this passed, I was thinking, the CRC, which is the Cannabis Regulatory Commission in New Jersey, but they're very strict and they can deny shit for seemingly no reason, right? So I really wanted to come up with something that, if I put all this money up front, I wasn't going to try and have it get denied, right? Because that's just money down the drain. Then you got to go back to the drawing board and you don't recoup that money back, right? So I was like, why not just put my name on it, right? I've established myself within the community. People know who I am. And, let's just see how much my name's worth, right? And sure enough, the Barrys got passed by the CRC, and I was able to have my own pre-roll through Happy Farmer. All because, again, I took advantage of an opportunity that was presented to me. I didn't pussyfoot around. I took advantage of it. I made it happen. And ultimately, the thing that I wanted to say about the Barrys was, once I had that pre-roll, it didn't stop there. The whole point of the pre-roll, or to have the Barrys pre-roll, was because I had gotten a promotion. Big shout out to Kristen and John and Danielle for giving me the promotion, but I got promoted from a bud tender to a general manager of the next location, Sensory Dispensary. The Barry's pre-roll was really to help out the new store and give us something to draw people in beyond just discounts, right? You can come in and actually support by getting a Barry, right, over 380 Davidson Ave over at Sensory Dispensary. But, in doing so, we had to really think, and it's like, yo, can we really sell these? Is this going to be something that could be sold? Because really, Fino Tommy said, you got to put up, 1,000 grams. 1,000 of these tubes, right? And I know, it may seem like a big number, but, when you believe in yourself, you cannot limit yourself to what you think you can't do, right? And the funniest part about this, big shout out to my family, because they didn't come in the tubes just like this, right? I literally had to get the tubes separate and get the stickers. And me and my family, big shout out to Doc, my mom, my dad, Ivy, Tori, TK, the whole fam, Ish, Jeff, everybody that took a tube and helped tag it, man. We all sat down together, had a little tagging party, and we put all these stickers on. And I feel like whenever I sell a Barry at the store, whenever somebody asks me for a Barry, it means something to me because I put this together myself. I picked out the orange tube myself because I love the Knicks and I wanted something that was going to stand out. I picked every single thing as far as this logo, the flower, everything that went into this pre-roll that's being sold legally on the New Jersey market. I had a hand in. There's so many times where we have, and you see it where a guy just signs a contract and it just comes out with whatever. I had a whole part in everything that it took to make this tube. And again, taking a general manager position where, I'm in charge of, bringing hot shit into the store and making sure it sells. To be able to have something like a Barry's to, help kickstart that business and give people a reason to come in, that was the whole point of the Barry's. And it could have just stopped there. I could have been just happy with the fact that, hey, I got my own pre-roll. Hey, I got a promotion. Let's just rock with it. But that was not enough for me. I knew if I had to get this to pop, I needed a big splash. And again, I have to talk about the power of leverage and the power of relationships. I could not have done this without my boy Dave from Tuxedo. Big shout out to Dave from Tuxedo. He came to me with the idea, and again, seems to be the trend where people come to me with these ideas, but I feel like, these ideas wouldn't have been able to come to me had I not established myself as a pillar in the community by doing the bowling events, by going to other people's events, by, providing any type of support. These are the things that people remember. So when it came down to, launching my brand, people were dying to come and help. And Dave from Tuxedo, I got to give a big time shout out to him because he was the person that said, hey, I want to go 50-50 with you on doing this event. Because when it came down to it, I really wanted to make a big splash. And you can't half-ass things when you're trying to create something, right? When you're building from the ground up. And with this party, I was a little nervous because, in New Jersey, the cannabis events you got to be able to smoke at, right? A lot of times when we went to certain events that have failed, those events, people were not able to be smoke friendly or smoke wherever they wanted to within the event. So I knew that people were going to want to try these Barrys. They're going to want to come in. And I wanted to pick an event and a venue that would be able to give me what I wanted and that people could enjoy freely. And that's why Dave was so important, because Dave was the person who found the venue and told me straight up, I want to go 50-50 with you on this. That meant everything to me because the Tuxedos, if you don't know, that was the actual cone that we used for the Barry's pre-roll. And again, Tuxedo, when you match them up against Vibes, Vibes is obviously the bigger brand. You have Raw out there. But, Dave, since I've come into the industry, was somebody that always supported us from day one, whether it was coming to events, giving us products, staying for longer pop-ups than he needed to. And when he came to me with this idea, I was nervous at first because, he said we got to bring in about 250 to 300 people. And I was like, I've done events before, but I'd never done anything to that magnitude, right? But then at first I was just like, I can't stop, right? Like, I can't limit myself. A lot of times when we see things, it catches us off guard, or we think that we can't do it, or we trick ourselves out of believing we can do it. So at first, that number of 250 to 300 people seemed a little bit outrageous to me. It seemed like something that I wouldn't be able to do. But I hunkered down. I said, fuck it. We're going to do this party, man. And me and Dave, whether it came to, going to the venue early to check it out, him tapping in to one of his connections to get us a cheaper rate on the venue. The point that I'm trying to make is that you cannot go out there and do it by yourself. All right? Maybe you could. Maybe it's possible. But generally speaking, the people that have the most successful events, or the people that have the most success in business, always have some sort of connection or partner, because they're not doing it on their own. If I would have done that party by myself, I would have been broke and I would have been exhausted. And I think that in having somebody like Dave from Tuxedo to say, hey, I want to go 50-50 with you, that kind of opened my eyes up to, oh shit, I got resources. Let's see how much more we could get, right? And then from there, we were able to get this sponsorship for the dabs. Big shout out to MPX, Superflux, and Illicit. Guys, I was able to give out 92 grams of dabs to everyone out there. If you don't know how much that is, or what the value or the monetary about that is, let's just say a gram of rosin in New Jersey retails at about $70 to $80. And I gave out 92 of them things. So let's just say we had some great sponsorships from MPX, Illicit, and Superflux. Other times, somebody would have been just happy with one vendor, would have been happy with just one station. Absolutely not. Not only did we have an unlimited dab bar, but we tapped into Major, one of my favorite beverage companies in the cannabis industry. And they said, you know what, Barry? We're going to give you an infused drink station. I'm like, oh, man. So not only do I got a dab bar, but I got an infused drink station. It's still not enough yet. I got to feed the people, right? So I went back and I tapped in. I was like, you know what? When I spent all that time in Newark, right? Some of my favorite food I used to get was the Ambassador's Chicken. We have something in the store, which is called Beard and Blaze, which is an infused hot sauce. So I thought, hey, what better way to give people one of the food that I used to love when I worked in Newark, and pair it with something that we can infuse that's in the store that can help with sales. Now, I reach out to Beard and Blaze. I was really, really nervous, because when I totaled out the amount to feed 400 wings from Ambassadors, that bill was looking at over $600 to $700. I could have half-assed it. I could have said, you know what? Let's just go with like a Chipotle bowl, or let's just give them some chips and salsa or something. But no, everything was about the effect. It was about the aesthetics of being in Newark and getting one of my favorite Newark foods to give to the people. And when I tell you, when I tapped into Beard and Blaze and I reached out to Cushy Labs in the Clear, they said, Barry, don't even worry about it. We'll pay for it and we'll take care of it so you can do what you need to do. $700 sponsorship for some food. 92 grams of dab sponsorship for a dab bar. And no, that wasn't it. I wanted to do something even more. I was inspired by my peers over at Garden Greens when they had their concert. Big shout out to Toast. And I said, you know what? I want something similar. Everything here in New Jersey has to be grown in New Jersey. And I wanted New Jersey grown artists to perform at my launch party. And the coolest thing was having a boy like Dan Harrison, having a guy like Tim, who are working with me at Sensory, who I literally get to elevate and put them on the platform so that people can like their music and follow them. And someone that I used to sell hats with on the block when I didn't have a job. I was selling hats to get by. And that guy, Jump Out LO, was making great music and somebody that I listened to. And I was able to say, thank you, come perform at my party. He absolutely killed it with his performance, so much that I was sweating bullets. I enjoyed so much, and people were like, yo, that guy you had at your party was amazing. And someone like Jump Out LO, who I love and I listen to, he's one of my favorite artists. For him to come to me after and say, Barry, you don't know what you did for me. I'm going to get back in the booth and I'm going to get back to music because of you, because of this party. Guys, this is what I'm talking about. Something that started out as a party for my pre-roll launch meant so much to so many people because, yes, it was about the pre-roll, but I used the pre-roll as a platform to help everyone else's brands. That in itself helped me because I couldn't do it by myself. I was able to have arguably the party of the year to where people are nominating me for Influencer of the Year. Not because of the pool party, not because of the bowling event, not because of the million in sales. Because of a party that I did that helped everyone in cannabis. And when I tell you, I had over 250 to 300 people at that party, you ask anybody else if I'm capping. You ask them and see if I wasn't have those people in there. And if everybody wasn't having a great time. And when it comes down to it, the corporate people that I work with, right? They always talk about making sure these things translate back to the store, right? Anything that you're doing outside events-wise, make sure it translates back. Guys, when I tell you that now, since being soft open from that launch party, we have sold over 90 Barry's pre-rolls in the store. And we haven't even had our grand opening yet. We have sold close to 100. I'm almost 10% away. Almost 10% done with my goal of selling that 1,000 before we even opened our doors. Because I had the launch party. Because I reached out to my friends and said, hey, come through. And tapped into that network and didn't shortchange myself. What if I didn't invest that money in myself to get those pre-roll tubes, to get the design? What if I didn't have the launch party? The point I'm trying to make to y'all is this. Don't let yourself stop you from doing great things. There's so many times we can talk ourselves out of things and be like, oh, I can get to that another time. Or, oh, this is in the way. Or, oh, I can't, I'm not feeling it. You got to put that shit aside. And if you really want something, you got to go get it. I love Jeff Kaplan, but Jeff is not going to go do it for me. I got to go out there and do it myself with the help of others, right? So the point I'm just trying to make is that I really had so much fun at that launch party, and I had all the nerves in the world. For someone that's done so much in the industry, I still had nerves. I still had a little bit of self-doubt that I could sell 1,000 tubes. Would it be worth it to spend this money on merch or to spend this money on this big party? And yes, it was worth it, and I think that, in the last coming weeks of seeing the places or the plays that I've put in play coming into fruition and getting that return back, it's amazing, man. And, the one thing that people have also asked me beyond, how do I feel about having my own pre-roll, but the biggest question people have asked me is, how does it feel to be a general manager? The big thing that I would have to say about being a general manager is the fact that there's no fallback. A lot of times when you're in a position, you have like a boss or you have someone that's ahead of you, you can always be like, they're giving me a hard time, or, I can find the answer from them. But when you have, multiple people that are looking to you for the answer, that can be, very exhausting and nerve-wracking at times. I feel like I love being a leader. I've done it through girls flag football. I've done it all throughout my professional career. I've always been able to organize things and lead people in the right direction. But this is a different type of pressure as a general manager because, again, everything falls on you. You're the person that has to go fix it. A lot of the times I can go and my boy Anthony, he made a joke. He's like, this guy Barry has a connection for everything. He always has somebody he can call up. Well, now at Sensory, I'm the guy that people have to call up. I'm the guy that has to go and get these deals. I'm the guy that has to stock the shelves and make sure the inventory is right. I'm the guy they're holding accountable for why things aren't going right. So that level of accountability is something that, my girl had said that she thought I may have been a little overwhelmed with. I didn't think that adjective fit me correctly, but I could see where she was coming from. Because a lot of the times with being the fall guy, with being the person that everything falls on, that can be exhausting whether you see it or not. And it at times it may have led into lack of patience for myself. It also may have led to lack of time for others. But there's certain sacrifices that have to be made when you're stepping into a level of leadership. In the last position that I was at over at Cloud, there was a big difference. People wanted to make more money, but people didn't want more responsibility. And I think that that's an overarching theme sometimes when you look at people that are unhappy in the job situations they're at. Everybody wants to make more money. Who doesn't want $100,000 salary, right? Who doesn't want a great bonus? Everybody wants more money. But how many people are looking for more responsibility? How many people are looking for more accountability? Everybody wants to make more money, but how many people want more responsibility? And that is where I have been at right now, is trying to adjust with accepting more responsibility and being the person that is to have all of the answers. And it's not easy. It's not been something that has been easy for me. It's been an adjustment. But when you have a situation where I have been now invited to sit in on these meetings with the store owners and all of the group, and I'm the only person of color in that room, that's something that I do not ever take for granted. And I think about all the people that do not have the opportunity that I have. And that's what makes me go that much more harder. Because again, being someone that you always have to have that chip on your shoulder, I am not trying to fail. I am trying to succeed. The same way with this podcast, to where nobody's sitting here and telling me, hey, you got to do the podcast. I mean, I got my boy Jeff who's holding me accountable and saying, hey, did you record yet? But there is no direct consequences for not recording. It takes motivation, sacrifice, dedication to go through and follow through with the things that you want in life. And that is what the position has taught me in the little bit of time that I have been a general manager, is that you have to be ready for the responsibilities or the added responsibilities that have been given and afforded. And that's what I'm adjusting with. I think that some of the bright spots are seeing someone like Bobby, CJ's girlfriend, who is flourishing. I was just talking about her with Jeff. Someone that has no cannabis experience, but she is flourishing as a bud tender. I love to be able to teach and grow and help people along in this journey. And I feel like through the frustrations, through the, I guess you could say the exhaustion, the stress, the main things that have really been pushing me forward or have been really keeping me motivated is people like Bobby who have learned and are doing better. People like Tim who is going out there and being someone that we can be dependable. Seeing Danielle, showing me and teaching me all these different things that she is, different strategies. I think that the team around you can also elevate and help you in those times where you don't really got it, right? So this has been definitely, overall, for these last couple weeks and months, it has been a big adjustment. But the one thing the message that I want to give to you guys as well that has kind of helped me, and this is my last thing about it, is stack the little wins. You gotta stack the little wins and appreciate those little wins. Because what happens is when you hit a goal here, then you hit a goal here, then you go here, then you make a little bit of progress there, and then you feel yourself up here. And then by there, you're all the way up here, and you've stacked up those little wins to where you've made progress. You have direct correlation, right? So for me, stacking the little wins has been very, very critical towards keeping my sanity and staying fresh so that I can give not only the Talk That Talk show to you guys, but to be the best version of myself that I can be on a daily. So, stack the little wins, make time for yourself. Even my boy Eric, big shout out to him. He took the time to text me. He said, Brody, work is work. Make sure you got some time for yourself. And that was important. Someone like Eric, who is a good friend of mine, but, he doesn't, I don't really look to him for that type of advice. But, that text was everything for me. You know what I'm saying? So, always keep your eyes and ears open because, those support systems that you have could be there to help you and give you those words of advice. And you might not even expect it, right? So, I just want to thank everyone out here that tunes into the Talk That Talk show. Big shout out to Jeff, one of my biggest, best friends in my life. He's always asking, about how I can get better and, when's the podcast happening. He just had his birthday. Big shout out to him. But, I'm just happy. And I think that, in life, especially when things are constantly changing, it's important to have that happiness and, having friends out there that support you and, being someone like Jeff who has come to different events, come to all my cannabis events, supported in every inch, every way that I could imagine. That type of support helps you springboard. You know what I'm saying? There's people that step into water. I'm out here leaping into the water because of the support systems that I have. So, again, big shout out to my boy Jeff. Big shout out to my family. Big shout out to everyone that tuned in. Big shout out to everyone that actually came to the launch party. And also, big shout out to everyone that supported in buying a Barry at the store, man. I got my own legal pre-roll on the market. And just so you know it's real, it's got that CRC tag on it, all right? Barry's Tropical Gelato. Can't nobody take that from me. And it ain't stopping there, all right? The last thing I want to talk about before I hop off the air is I got to talk about my New York Knicks, all right? I have had the pleasure of seeing three games this year, and what I will say about this is the Knicks do look better, all right? I do like the addition of Jordan Clarkson. I do think that this team is playing a lot harder. The one thing that's been a little refreshing was last year, the Knicks were very sporadic with their three-point shooting. And coming out the gate this year, we've seen that the Knicks have had multiple games hitting over 20 three-pointers. That just shows the direct correlation of getting better shooters and having a more functional offense to get better shots up. It's a lot easier to get a shot off a swing pass in rhythm to shoot that three than dribble, in and out, trying to shoot a contested three. So I see the quality of the shots going up for the Knicks, and I'm seeing the Knicks playing a lot better team-wise. We're seeing that ball moving around, the assisting. I'm really happy with the ball movement from the New York Knicks. However, there's been two things in watching the Knicks over these last couple weeks in the start of the season that's really been concerning. And we just talked about that three-point shooting, but I do feel like because the Knicks are shooting better threes, now they're reliant on shooting threes. And that is something that, can get you into big trouble, all right? The Knicks have to do a better job of balancing the three-point shooting and still going to the basket. I can remember, last year so many times OG Anunoby taking it hard to the cup. Deuce McBride, Jalen Brunson getting that little floater in mid-range. We haven't seen as much of it. We've seen spurts of it, but we have not seen the balance of great three-point shooting and take it to the basket. We've seen a lot of great three-point shooting games from the Knicks. We've seen a lot of great high field goal percentage games from the twos, but we just haven't seen an even balance of the Knicks. Either the Knicks are shooting really well from three, or they look really bad like they did against the Magic, right? So, and another thing, and the last thing I want to talk about that the Knicks have kind of struggled with is just overall physicality. The last game I went to when I saw the Knicks play the Magic, I saw the Magic take direct lines to the basket and straight muscle the Knicks. I saw guys rubbing their heads, rubbing their body as they're getting pummeled, getting run over, knocked over. The Knicks have to do, whether they go to the weight room or, they got to do something about the physicality. Because what's happening is these bigger, more physical teams are bringing the fight to the Knicks, and then they're on their heels. The Knicks are at their best when they're defensively locked in, turning people over, and creating those offense to swing threes or straight dunks to the basket. I need to see more physicality from the Knicks and a variety of offense from the Knicks, all right? I don't want to see 4 or 5 straight possessions of chuck threes. I don't want to see a possession where Franz Wagner takes a dribble, elbow to the chest, and we got a layup. These are professional athletes. There's no reason why the New York Knicks should be getting bullied on their own court. So, looking forward into these next couple weeks, I'm going to be looking to see, are the Knicks being out-physicaled? Are the Knicks doing good in terms of providing variety in offense? Not only three-pointers, but I want to see some direct line twos, all right? And I think that if the Knicks can be a little bit more balanced offensively, then they'll have a good chance at being better and doing the expectations of everybody's saying the Knicks are going to the finals. I don't know if that's good or bad, because if they're drinking the Kool-Aid, it's going to be a lot harder for them to make it there, right? So I need to see the Knicks stay hungry and stay healthy. We've seen injuries to OG Anunoby. We saw Mitchell Robinson start the season on the injuries. And then also we saw Jalen Brunson had to leave, right? The last game from an ankle injury. Josh Hart started out hurt. So again, the Knicks have had injuries. They're dealing with injuries now. They got to get healthy if we want to see this team not only make a deep run in the playoffs, but actually succeed in winning in the playoffs. But thank you guys so much for tuning into the Talk That Talk show. This is episode 270 in the books. Want to give a big time shout out to everyone that's tuned in on our Facebook or our Instagram Live, whether you're tuned in on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. We are on all streaming platforms. I love you all. If you have anything that you want to see on, please feel free to comment, send a message, tell me what you want me to talk about, tell me what you want me to cover. This Talk That Talk show is here to stay. We are that inch closer to 300 episodes. And once again, thank you guys so much for rocking out with me and staying patient with me. I love you all. Enjoy your Saturday. Stay hungry. And I'll see you next week.